We're the only faculty in Ontario that combines traditional liberal arts with professional studies. Here, you can combine any number of programs as double majors or majors and minors. Interested in philosophy and administrative studies? You can do that here.
Nowhere else in the GTA can you find a more diverse and inclusive faculty. LA&PS's culture is varied and vibrant. Our students are engaged in important equity work and community engagement.
The opportunities for academic and personal growth are unmatched at LA&PS. As an international student, I have found a home among my peers. I've taken part in clubs, research projects, and important outreach activities.
LA&PS has many opportunities for internships and work placements to help enhance your in-class learning. I've been working as McLaughlin College's Peer Mentor Network Coordinator, and it's preparing me for what comes after graduation.
Our faculty is at the forefront of institutional change. This year, I was appointed as Special Advisor on LA&PS's anti-Black racism strategy, so we can begin meaningful and hard conversations about equity and anti-Black racism in our communities.
As a proud York graduate, I credit my professors and peers for an excellent education. I gained a sense of self and a lifelong love of learning.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Adam Duncan. I'm the Recruitment and Liaison Officer for the Faculty of Liberal Arts and Professional Studies. And today we're going to be talking about one of our more interesting programs, which is Religious Studies. Before we get started, I would like to take a moment. This meeting is virtual. You're watching this in your homes. And because of that, we're not all actually gathered in the same space. York's land acknowledgement might not represent the territory you are currently on. And I would ask, if that is the case, that you each take the responsibility to acknowledge the traditional territory that you are on and its current treaty holders. As a member of the York University community, I recognize that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships with the territories upon which York University campuses are located that precede the establishment of York University. York University acknowledges its presence on the traditional territory of many Indigenous nations. The area known as Takaranto has been taken care of by the Anishinaabeg Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Huron-Wendat, and the Métis. It is now home to many Indigenous peoples. We acknowledge the current treaty holders, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. This territory is subject to the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement to peacefully share and care for the Great Lakes region. Thank you very much for giving your attention to that. I would love to now introduce our very special guest we have with us, Professor Anthony Burke, who is with us from our Religious Studies program. Welcome, thank you for joining us today. And I understand that you have a presentation for us.
Yes, let me just turn my screen on. Every university has a religious studies program. For those of you who come from high schools where religion was not part of the curriculum, university would be your first introduction to its study. For those of you who do have some previous experience with religion, either from high school courses or because you're part of a faith community, university will broaden your knowledge and understanding of religion. Because university programs have a particular way of studying religion, not as insiders influenced by the particular teachings of one religion, not with the belief that one religion is more superior than the others, but as scholars that look into religious traditions from the outside, even temporarily, even just within the classroom, because we want to try to understand how religions work. We want to think about the circumstances of their origins, the meanings of their practices, and how they interact and sometimes come into conflict with other religious traditions. Most of all, we want students to view the religions critically, to ask questions, to confront problems. And that's the spirit of the university. Often in my classes, I tell students, you don't necessarily have to solve these problems, but just recognize that they are there. And that's kind of the beginning of wisdom. So we don't learn any if we don't ask questions and if we don't test our assumptions. Sometimes this can be a difficult problem for some of our students, particularly new students to the program, because now they're being asked to look at their own religious traditions in a new and maybe even uncomfortable way. But it's very rewarding, at least I'd like to think so, because if you can tackle the big questions that religion poses, I think you can tackle anything. So our students find that the lessons of our program transfer well to other disciplines. University should be about teaching you critical thinking. I don't think that gets done more so than in religious studies. Now, why people enroll in our program? Well, I often say that we don't get a lot of students who begin their university careers as religious studies majors. Traditionally, many students come to religious studies from other programs, often in their second or maybe even their third year. And this is because, in some cases at least, what they came to university for ended up being not the right thing for them. It's not quite the right fit. And that's what happened to me. My D- in first year economics told me that business school was not for me. But I had taken a few religious studies courses as electives in my first year. And I found that those courses were far more interesting and I was far better at them. And that's, part of the goal, really, to find the thing that captures your interest, that makes you want to keep studying it for years sometimes. So I came a bit late to my future career, but that's life. We often move more in zigzags than straight lines. Now, as it turns out, I'm not entirely correct that our majors are all refugees from other programs. We have seen a steady increase in students entering the program in first year. Certainly, this is because some religious studies students see religious studies as a career, something that they already have a plan outlined in their minds. But some enroll simply out of a desire to learn more about the world around them, or about their neighbors, or about such things as how religion can be both a force for good and a force for evil. Now, our program, the courses that we have in the program, they include courses on the origins and teachings of the major world religions, as any religious studies program does. So we look at Islam, Judaism, Christianity, Buddhism, even some smaller size religions like Sikhism. And these, but what we are most proud of in our program are the courses that examine the interactions of religions, particularly in Canada. I'll just show you a few of these descriptions for a few of these. Our World Religions in Canada course. This is a required course now for our majors, but it comes at the second year level, in part because, again, we have quite a few students who come to us from in later years. And the course introduces students to the full breadth of the world religions, but it focuses on the Canadian experience, with attention particularly on the people who make up the York community. We really want to answer the needs and interests of our community here. So we hope students see something of their own experiences in the course, as well as those of their neighbors. The same approach is taken in one of our newest courses, an upper level course, so at the 3000 level, which is called Anti-Semitism and Islamophobia in Canada. This has been instrumental in encouraging discussions among Jews and Muslims on campus. And it shows them, from what I hear from the instructor and the students, is that there's more that unites them than divides them. Another course was just created just last year. This is God Online, Religion in the Digital Age. And it was designed specifically as an online course, trying to be kind of clever with things. A course about God Online that is online. And as you can imagine, it became quite topical over the past year when lockdowns made it necessary for religious communities to gather virtually. Now, these are all upper level courses, but students entering the program have the option to choose from a variety of first year courses. As it happens, our first year religious studies courses are very popular. We get lots of people wanting to take religious studies courses, so we mount quite a few of them. But there's no first year required course, as I mentioned. So you have a lot to choose from. And one of those you might want to choose from is Gods and Humans. This again serves as an introduction to a variety of religious traditions, but focuses specifically on interactions between gods and humans in literature, art, and philosophy. Religion permeates our culture, or I should say cultures. We don't have just one culture here. And official scriptures are not the only place that one can go to learn about it. As I said, again, there's lots of other first year courses that you could choose from if you're entering the program. Some that look at individual religious traditions, such as Islamic traditions or the Jewish experience, and others look at multiple traditions, such as the nature of religion. Now, if you're thinking about religious studies as a career, I have this large list here of possibilities available to you. It's such a wide open list because religious studies can lead to many other careers once you graduate. But many of our students are in the education program here at York. So they take religious studies courses as one of their teachable subjects. We have graduates also who have gone on to work in libraries and museums, and some have become professors of religion, like me. Some have moved from the university environment to religious post-secondary institutions to become community leaders, such as priests, pastors, imams, etc. And then others have used their knowledge of religious traditions for such careers as journalism, fiction writing, or human rights advocacy. So there's quite a lot of options to you. So for many of us in religious studies, the degree is not the end of our career journey. It's just a stop along the way. Thanks, Adam.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for that overview of the program. I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about the faculty members who are in the religious studies faculty and what some of the research they do is and some of the areas that they're interested in.
We cover well early Christianity, both through what I teach and through our colleague Phil Harland. So we look at the biblical texts and texts that were composed around the same time as the Bible. And the Jewish studies, our colleagues in Jewish studies who are affiliated with us also cover the Jewish tradition. And so I said three, but now I'm adding the fourth with Judaism. And the other two are Buddhism, which is covered principally by our colleague Alicia Turner, and she covers South Asian religious traditions, which includes Buddhism. And the fourth is Islam, and we have two faculty members, Selma Zacevic and Marta, who is just new, so her last name escapes me. Sorry about that. So we cover a good range of religions in in a considerable amount of detail. But again, we do have other courses as well. One of which I mentioned the tradition in the talk there is Sikhism, which is a course that our students have wanted for quite a long time, but we haven't been able to mount. And we've recently hired a new person in Asian cultures who will be teaching Sikhism and Hinduism, so that will add now to our portfolio of traditions that we cover in the program.
Fantastic. Now, for students who might be interested in religious studies, but have other areas of interest, such as, say, history or literature, how easy is it to pair religious studies with some of the other majors or disciplines if a student wanted to do two things at York, or even is maybe a major and a minor combination?
Yeah, you can pair religion with just about anything, but certainly some things will make a bit more sense. My own experience when I was an undergrad, I besides the D- in economics I like to tell everyone about, is I started, once after business, I started as an English major and then added religious studies as a second major. And for me, it made a lot of sense because I was reading these classics of English literature, and the imagery and the topics were so much infused by the biblical world that I thought this would be a good pair to help me understanding the literature better. So English literature is a really good companion. History is also good. The two kind of feed off one another. It's what we always talk about in religious studies is trying to understand a religion in its particular context. And if you can broaden that context with a deeper look at history along the way, that can be very helpful to you. But other things come to mind too. Political science, politics and religion are intertwined today. You can't really look at one without the other. Indigenous studies, again, it's a natural kind of fit. So there's certainly lots of options, but even some of the more peculiar ones one might think strike you as peculiar are certainly possibilities as well. Think of like a business administration degree with religion as well, and what kind of insights that these two can lend to one another, and that can position you once you graduate as an interesting candidate for a job who has that kind of breadth and depth to what they're doing.
Absolutely, and we work really hard in our faculty to help students make those combinations. So I'm really glad to hear that the program supports that sort of diversity in study. Another question I had, so a lot of people who are going to be watching this video are not going to be familiar at all, and you spoke a little bit about some of the course examples. But if we could look maybe a little closer, and it doesn't have to be that general course, but maybe an introductory level course that you might have instructed, what can students expect in sort of their first classes? What is religious studies? If you can summarize, what is it sort of about, and what a first class might look like? Because I think a lot of people might confuse religious studies with maybe theology a little.
Sure. I can tell you about the course Bible in Modern Contexts. So first year Bible course. Sometimes we call it the baby Bible course because it's the first year class. And this actually was transformed somewhat by me last year. And I'll talk to you about what that kind of transformation is. But essentially, it began as a course that would be an introduction to the Bible, so both the Hebrew Bible, or Old Testament, as Christians call it, and the New Testament. And we try to introduce, by modern contexts, we want to introduce students principally to what we call the historical critical approach, which is the way we study religious literature in the university. We're trying to figure out what these texts meant in their original context. Who wrote them? Why did they write them? How did they write them? What kinds of sources might they have used, and etc. So we want to try and understand the text. But the course has changed in this latest iteration because I really wanted to focus on this modern context idea. So it's not just the historical critical approach, but also how are these texts now being used in modern contexts? So we would look, for example, at topics related to roles of women, or race, or homosexuality in the biblical texts, and then cover a bit of a range of history about how the text has been used in each of those topics, and then how it's being used today. So it's the idea is to really try and engage the students far more than its earlier iteration did, by showing them why this text is still relevant. So it's still a scholarly approach, but it's not just an ancient scholarly approach, but it's looking at these topics throughout the history of principally Judaism and Christianity.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I think that's a great overview of the program. I was wondering if you had any sort of final thoughts to leave with some of the prospective students who might be thinking about the religious studies program at York University.
Well, I always felt that I kind of led off with this a little bit, that religious studies is really what the university is about. That it's asks all the big questions. These are the things that when you've been in school all day and you go hang out at your friends, maybe at the bar or just at residence or wherever, and you start to think about the big questions. That's why you're at university. You want to think about these things. And these are the courses that feed those kinds of conversations. You don't want to be the person in the room who is ill-informed about what you're talking about. So the more you can bring to those conversations, the better. And I do think it's as I said, it encourages critical thinking that you can use anywhere in life. I think a person who is engaged with the world asks questions about the world and thinks about problems and ways to solve those problems, rather than what would be maybe the approach you have about religion coming into the university, where you just repeat the things that you've been told for years and years and years because it's part of your tradition. It doesn't mean abandoning those things, but it hopefully brings a depth to those experiences, where you can both look at how your religious tradition affects you today, and other religious traditions affect other people, but also where these things came from and how they've developed over time. So that's the best promotion I can give for the program, I think.
That was fantastic. Thanks so much. Well, that takes us to about the end of our time this afternoon. Thank you so much, Professor Burke, for joining us today and sharing information about the Religious Studies program. For students who want to find out more, please feel free to contact us at goyork@yorku.ca with any questions. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Yorku LA&PS. And don't forget to submit your applications as soon as possible. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.